All right. Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday morning, week 28 of our study of the book of Genesis. Again, Genesis with the focus of the God of love from the beginning. There are a lot of different ways that we could read this, but that's been the focus this read through. Let's go ahead and start with prayer. We'll do a review and then we'll get into today's stuff. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for who you are, for what you've done, for being you. Father, for calling us as we are and inviting us to change, inviting us to participate in what you do, to invite us to get to know you day by day, verse by verse, moment by moment, prayer by prayer. Father, we want to stop and just let yesterday, this morning, tomorrow go and just be here and be present with you. Invite you to do your thing. Father, we ask that you bless us and that you be blessed by us, and that we glorify you in what we do and say. Father, we thank you, we give you all honor, all glory, and all praise. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so as usual, just a brief screen here for anybody who's on the videos and wants to take a look at where we were and look something up. I have no idea if anybody actually uses this, but I wanted to make it available in case they do. Last week was week 27. We covered Genesis 44 and 45. So basically what we had is Joseph has sent his brothers out from their feast, but again he sets money in their sacks, and in the sack of Benjamin he places his silver cup. All of this is part of him setting up like one final test for his brothers. Up to that point, they've been very good. They've had good attitudes, but he seems to want to put them at a point where things are actually on the line. It's not just talk. It's not just everything, whatever. They're being brought back and they're being told they can't have their brother. They're going to lose their brother. And how did they respond? In which case, they were all very contrite, very, very much did not want to lose their brother. Very, very different scene than when and how they treated Joseph. But also you see Judah stepping up and putting himself as a substitution for Benjamin. So he didn't want for his father to not have his youngest son. He said, "Take me instead." It's a very emotional moment, which puts us at chapter 45, where Joseph, he can't take it anymore. He sends all the Egyptians out, and he breaks down, and is sobbing. It's like, it's me, it's Joseph, which really got his brother's attention.
So many years of built up, you know?
I mean, like, we're talking about 20 years. He's supposed to be dead, as far as they know, and here he is in charge, large and in charge. The worst thing you could probably think of is somebody you treated terribly, terribly wrong, and then when you see them again, they literally have the power of life and death. A word from them, and you could spend the rest of your life, however long or short that might be, miserable. And here, this is what the case is for them and Joseph.
I'm also thinking from his perspective, you know, how he's got years of pent up anger, and which is not faced because of no proximity to his brothers, and then all of a sudden they appear into the picture.
Right.
It just like rekindles that flame of hatred and anger and resentment that he has to allow love to squelch it.
So
imagine just a pull.
It's an amazing moment that's full of all kinds of tensions on both sides, for sure. I mean, and again, what I think is remarkable is how much time God has allowed to go through and how much has happened, both for the brothers, who have clearly had a change of heart and character, and for Joseph, because it's very likely that like a couple years before, 7 years before for sure, if he'd had the same interaction, his response to them could have been much more vindictive. But at this point, he's already had the two children, and like the names he's given is basically that he's been able to forget the pain, he's been able to move on. And then he's also being tested in all this. Like, how is he going to respond? And he responds well. So he reveals himself to them, and he says, now go back, get my father, bring him here. I'm going to get everything set up. Tell him I'm alive. Sends with lots of gifts. So they do go back. They take all the gifts. They tell him, and he's like, there's no way. But then he sees all the treasures that have come back, and he believes it. And it says the spirit of Jacob revived, and then Israel made plans to go to Egypt. And it's always an interesting thing to look at and see when the Bible goes back and forth between the name Jacob and the name Israel. We're going to see some more pop back and forth. And some of that is very specifically a heart change, and some of that is also, well, it's kind of a poetic thing to make sure that you understand that the two are one, but they're two. But we'll get into that a little bit in just a minute. Well, if you pay attention reading the Old Testament, you're going to find poetic devices all through it. You can miss it. People do all the time. But a lot of that oral tradition that preserved this until it could be written down is maintained in, there's all kinds of them. Like one of them you'll see it's called, it's like a parallelism where they'll say something like, they'll say it once and they'll say the same thing a different way to give you a rounder idea of the full concept. But then you'll see that sometimes with Jacob and Israel being mentioned in the same way. Like the sons of Jacob did this, the men of Israel continued, and it's just that sort of thing.
It's all the pros and cons of the language.
Well, yes, and yeah, I'll leave that alone. We could get into all kinds of things about language, but so we got the three questions. Where is the God of love in this passage? Why did he preserve this in his word? And how does this passage apply to my life? Again, looking for God, looking for his love, looking for his character, looking for what it is that he wants us to see in this, and then not just looking at it and learning it, but actually applying it. Because anything we can find out about who God is matters to who we are today. I mean, he doesn't change. He's very complex, but he's consistently so. And he's not, well, we can't know how deep and how wide and how great he is, but we can know him. That's why we have the Bible. It's so that we know that we can know him. He wants a relationship. He doesn't just want servants. He doesn't want like someone to command. He wants somebody to have a relationship with. And the Bible is just full of the evidence of that. All right, so Genesis 46. That may be the fastest review we've ever done in here. I'm just saying. Genesis 46. So Israel, again, not Jacob, but Israel set out with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. Beersheba is again that place he keeps stopping and reestablishing his relationship with God. This is the same place. And remember that Israel is also Jacob, who, Beersheba, there's a couple of different things, but anyway, but he keeps establishing. It's like every time he sets out on a new stage of his life, a new journey in his life, he goes through and he offers sacrifices to God. He's like, let's get everything, like, let's leave the past behind and move forward. Let's reestablish this is who we are. This is what's going on. And again, he does this, and God spoke to Israel in visions of the night. I don't know why they didn't say dreams, but apparently it's different. And here's interesting. And God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. Again, we're reestablishing this covenant, this relationship. It's interesting to me that we kind of have this time where not really sure how to put it into whatever, but Jacob is the patriarch. But for a time, we hear nothing about Jacob really, except that he's depressed. But we see the hand and the presence of God goes with Joseph into Egypt and prepares a way. And then once that is reunited, once that's connected with Joseph and Jacob in this moving back, Jacob again moves back into this patriarchal deal where God reestablishes the covenant. Not with Joseph. So whatever's going on with Jacob / Israel, God is reestablishing that covenant with him and through his descendants. I think it's fascinating. I mean, we're talking about, this has been over 20 years since Joseph went missing, and considerably longer since the last time that we hear of Jacob stopping and setting up an altar or whatever. And he's spent the last 20 years at least depressed, but now he's revived. He's Jacob, now Israel goes, he reestablishes his relationship, and then God meets him where he is and picks up. We see this with Abraham, where Abraham went and brought Lot with him, and when Lot leaves, then he does an altar and God reestablishes the covenant. Then there's that whole mix up in Egypt that got them like straddled with Hagar, and then we have the Ishmael thing. But then after Ishmael is done, then God comes back in and reestablishes the covenant. It's like God's like, okay, there's been some stuff going on in between. Let's get back to who we are, and what my business is about.
Great hope for all of us.
It's great hope for all of us. It means that even if we waste 20 years, and that's really not, God does things with those 20 years.
Right.
But even if there's a stretch between the milestones in God's plan for your life, when you hit the next milestone, God's like, okay, let's keep going. And that's important. It's like God has no problem setting years aside and saying like, let's pick up right where we left off. That's huge. For I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also assuredly bring you up again, and Joseph will close your eyes. This is a man who is well past his 100 years, who has lost Joseph, but also, I mean, I think he's right at 130. I'm pretty sure it's 130. And he's moving again. And he's going into Egypt. Now, that doesn't have the same significance as it does to Jews later on, obviously. But he's going there, and God's reestablishing the covenant. But again, it's a today thing. He's not just saying, I'm going to make you a great nation. He's like, I'm going to go with you into Egypt. I'm going to make you a great nation there. I will go down with you there, and I will assuredly bring you back out again. This is huge. God knows what's coming. God's actually going to let them know what's going to happen. But he's saying that I'm not just casting the dice and letting it land where it's going to be. He's like, I've got a plan. This is a temporary thing. I'm going to bring you back to the land I promised you. Because also, they're leaving the promised land and going into Egypt. God's like making sure he understands that this covenant, like, I'm going to make you a great nation there, but I'm going to bring you back out. And then Joseph will close your eyes. You'll see him. You'll live long enough to whatever, but also when you die, that son that you love will be there with you.
I guess Egypt might be seen as a emotion, possibly.
How so?
As opposed to where they were. Going down there doesn't seem like a promotion.
Okay. I thought, okay. I'm with you now.
I know I use big words, I'm sorry.
Well, you know, I think I heard commotion, and then I heard, yes.
But if that was the promised land, when they had to go back and take it, there were all kinds of giants.
Oh, yes.
And different people there. So they were living with them during that period, or what?
They were living in part of that community, yes. They weren't as bad as they were going to be. In fact, that's one of the things that God tells them, like there's going to be a certain period of time because they have not actually achieved the depth of wickedness that deserves a punishment I'm bringing. So he's giving them time. So yeah, they were there to some extent, but also we're talking about there's going to be about 400 years between this and when they go back to retake the promised land. So people can move in, entire dynasties can rise and fall in that period of time. I mean, the United States is less than 300 years old. We as a nation have existed less time than 3 generations of this story. which is kind of mind-blowing. But yes, I mean, they had wicked people in there. We know that from some of the stuff that, just the small stories. But in the 400 years to span between here and there, they got worse and worse and worse.
And with that time comparison, you consider how many years of writing and history has been kept in this one book.
Yes.
Over such a long period of time, thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
I mean, we think, our nation is old going back to, 1900 or something.
Right. Yeah, it's I don't think Americans really have a grasp on how long cultures have existed. I mean,
How can we?
I mean, we're talking. There are empires out there that have existed for thousands of years. Yes.
Scientific studies have actually shown that humans have interacted with dinosaur footprints.
Yes. Yeah, we really have no concept of how much time has really gone by. For those who couldn't hear, on the video, just mentioned that there's actually evidence that there are human footprints near dinosaur footprints. So yeah, we've been around for a long time. We just don't have a good grasp of the passage of time. Yeah, we're so, especially now, this country and what we have, even as it is, we are blessed. But one of the difficulties in a country that is extremely blessed is we don't realize how bad it could be, and we only have our own perspective to work with. It's another reason to dig into the Word and realize things like how much time has passed here. But anyway, so.
And those dinosaurs, didn't they discover some of those at Disney World?
I'm not even going to respond to that. Moving right along. And Joseph will close your eyes. I almost feel like we ought to pray right now. Verse 5, Then Jacob left Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father Jacob and their little ones and their wives in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They also took, that was not what was supposed to happen. I was trying to, excuse me, technology. Blame it on technology. They also took their livestock and their possessions which they had acquired in the land of Canaan and came to Egypt, Jacob and all his descendants with him, his sons and his grandsons with him, his daughters and his granddaughters, and all his descendants he brought with him to Egypt. I'll pause right there. Want to go back briefly. When Pharaoh told Joseph, yes, send for your father, send for your family, tell them not to worry about anything, they can leave all their stuff, we're going to take care of them. It's really interesting. This family does not let anybody mess with what God's given them. It's like, you don't add to it because you're not going to get any credit for it, but I'm also not leaving this behind because God gave it to me. It's mine from Him. Anyway, there's all kinds of places to go, but that's there. But then there's also this emphasis of all these people who have come with him, his daughters, his granddaughters, his grandsons, his sons, all his descendants he brought with him to Egypt. So there's no one left behind. Now, why is that significant? We look through the Bible, we see all these genealogies, and I've talked about this before. We've seen where the family splits and where this family is very specifically, they went here, and then they list off all the descendants, and this is Abraham's line, the covenant line, and it's here. So what we see here is that Jacob, Israel, and all the descendants of Israel, the wholeness of Israel, the covenantal line, has moved with them. There's nobody left behind. Nobody has a claim to that covenantal line outside of this group. And that's very important. Because you start getting into the splits. I mean, the whole the Ishmaelite deal, the Islam and all the stuff that's going on with there is largely due to a conflict based on who has the right to the covenant. And the Bible, and I seriously doubt that they even realize at this point, I mean, who knows, but so much meticulous detail about who is related to whom and where they were and who split where and what, all very, very meticulously tracked. And then here we go, and more emphasis here. Those who came to Egypt.
And all preserved.
Yes.
Why is it written?
Right. They tracked it through oral tradition. This is something that they would tell in stories around like the fire at night. This is something that this was school. I mean, before they had public school, this was school. You knew your history and you learned it. And you're going to see some of the poetic stuff going on in the phrasing here. We will lose some of it because it's not in Hebrew anymore, but some of it still transfers. Now, these are the names of the sons of Israel who went into Egypt. Jacob and his sons. Now, again, there's that parallel. There's an actual technical, I think it's parallelism, but these are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt, Jacob and his sons. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. Now, also, if you will, kind of picture a group of people that are doing this as kind of a call and response situation, where almost like you've got a patriarch who says this out. Now, these are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt, Jacob and his sons. Then Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and someone says, and the sons of Reuben, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. And the sons of Simeon, and someone says, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of the Canaanite woman. So you got this, it's broken, but it's broken into very repetitive patterns. Helps with memory. It's done this way so they make sure they remember who is who and who is whom. Or, no, that's wrong. Who they are, who they belong to. And this is interesting. I mean, all these, and there's patterns here, and I don't know enough about how Hebrew grammar works, but we look at Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi, and that's done in like the comma set off. And the sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and then we break the pattern. And Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. And you start realizing that something went on here with Simeon, that this particular son is specifically listed. He's in the genealogy, but not the son of a wife, not the whatever. Like, there's a whole story that went on here that we don't have. And Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman.
That woman.
Yeah, it's like, there's a story here. Don't know what it is, but there's a story. And the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the sons of Judah, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. Now, but and Onan died in the land of Canaan. So, here's an interesting thing. And some of this is a little bit of conjecture. Mostly I'm bringing this up just to get people thinking about it. And Onan were evil, and they died without offspring. Okay? Now, in the culture, if the brother dies without offspring, the other brother is supposed to come along and to provide an offspring. Well, the other brother came along and refused to do so they're both gone. Now, Shelah is the next son who should have, this is the whole Tamar thing, but Judah didn't give Shelah to Tamar to have a child. So, then you can go back and find it, but Tamar tricks Judah, and Perez and Zerah are in here. Now, and Onan are still in the line, but they're not gone because technically, though in a really convoluted way, Perez and Zerah are the offspring who carry on their line. Because Perez is the firstborn, and so he would have been the firstborn who would carry on the line or the name of but because it's his father and not his brother who did the deed, he's still in the line of Judah. So it's just really convoluted, but it's like and Onan, that duty was still carried on, but it's gone through Judah. And the interesting thing here is we don't see any more about any of the sons of and Onan, and you do see stuff about Shelah much later on. But Perez gets mentioned, and the sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. And then we go on to the next one. We don't see anything now. That's largely due to the fact that at this point it's just talking about who was going to Egypt. That's the point here. However, If you go through the line of Jesus, his ancestry, it goes from Judah to Perez, who is technically the firstborn in the line of but was not, he was evil. So you still get a firstborn line going here, and it's through him that the Messiah comes, not any of the others. Even though Sheila he survived of the first three, it's not his or whatever was going on with his mother that didn't even get a name. Anyway, it's just all very interesting to me how that kind of lays out, and that it's Perez, not Sheila, who would have been the older one. And it's also interesting how often God does not care who was the firstborn. Now, only born is significant, but we get Perez, and then we move on to Issachar. And the sons of Issachar, Tola, Puva, which different translations will say Puwa, I don't know. They have a lot of different, like in Chronicles and Kings, when they go through the genealogy, some of these names, like if you look and see the little word bubble thing for notes, you'll find Levi, Gershon is also pronounced Gershom. There's a lot of these, and what you end up seeing is like as they get written down in, say, the different texts like Chronicles or Kings, they'll spell the names differently. It's the same person, but they had more than one name. Now, I don't know why they did that. I'm sure somebody does or has an educated guess. But we have notes like these so that we can make sure that we see the connections. Because we've got just the English translation, and there's multiple copies and iterations of the older ones. But this is to make sure that it's like we can't have all the different versions in one text, so we can have the agreed upon, but still have links to see how it's all connected. But even the Puva is like there, and then like this one is like Jashub. Okay, and I'm not sure if that may be Iob or wait. Let me go here. Here it is. It's before it. It's like Puva, and then Pua in two different translations, or not translations, but iterations. Okay, that was a rabbit trail. And then Iob.
Nobody's naming their kids that.
No. It's Yob. I'm not even sure. I actually was tempted to look that one up in the Hebrew just to see how they pronounced it, but I was afraid it'd be something like Maher Shalal Hashbaz or something, which is a real name. And Shimron. Boy, I'm all over the place today. And the sons of Zebulun, Sered, Elon. Did not realize that Elon was a biblical name. I don't think I've ever really paid as much attention to the genealogies as I have this go through. And Jaleel. These are the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Padan Aram with his daughter Dinah. So what we've got is this first section is all the sons and daughter of Leah. And then so like all of these descendants are going to be broken down by the mother. All his sons and daughters were numbered 33. And the sons of Gad, let me make sure I read that right. Yes. And the sons of Gad, Ziphion, Haggai, or Haggi, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and Areli. It's a lot of kids. And the sons of Asher, Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, Beriah, and their sister Sarah. Interesting to me that every now and then a sister gets mentioned. And it's hard to believe that these are the only sisters born, but some of them get named. And it makes me wonder if there are stories or histories that we just don't know about where that was significant. But hey, you made it in the Bible. Good for you. And the sons of Beriah, Heber, and Malkiel. These are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to his daughter Leah. So this is the maidservant of Leah. And those are those sons. And she bore Jacob these 16 persons. The sons of Jacob's wife Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. Now to Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore to him. And again, it's like that was important. And even the phrasing, there's a rhythm to it. Like this and this, who was born to this, who was from this, and just... And The sons of, yes, Cajuns. And the sons of Benjamin, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muppim, Huppim, and Ard. That is not the original names. That I don't have any idea. Muppim. Like, okay, let me just hit. In Numbers, Muppim is Shefufim. And in Chronicles, it's Shuppim.
Interesting.
How did he end up in Genesis with Muppim?
Did I hear correctly there's going to be a test on this?
There is, but I'm not grading it. And then Huppim, and it says Winkin, Blinkin, and Nod. I'm like Muppim, Huppim, and Ard. Anyway, distracted again. These are the sons of Rachel. Who knew that the genealogies could be this much fun, right? These are the sons of Rachel who were born to Jacob. There were 14 persons in all. And the sons of Dan, Husham, and the sons of Naphtali. Okay. And the sons of Dan, Husham.
That might be the poetic part.
I mean, it definitely is the phrasing. It's like not the son of Dan, but it's the sons. So, and I looked it up. It's literally the plural form of Ben, son of. So yeah, this has got some, like, this is part of that oral tradition. It may have more. Just really all these, and the sons of Dan, Husham.
Since there's like a rhythm to it being spoken, I wonder if that's why sometimes there's a daughter inserted so that the
Rhythm stays.
Yeah.
For like to keep the meter correct.
Yeah.
It's like what is the song? The Alleluia song is like the sons of men and angels sing Alleluia. Like the Alleluias got added to the original song because there was more room on the paper, so the printer added it to fill it in. So the daughters are added in for better rhythm and.
Probably not third level.
Well, yeah. Who knows? Like again, this is just what we've got. And the sons of Dan, Husham. And again, if you've got this, if they did it this way, where someone calls out, and the sons of Dan, and the sons of, like so forth and so on, and then someone stands up and says the name. Like maybe you use this one for the youngest one who only has to remember one name. It's like you got one job. You got one son.
A little bit like the Catholic Mass.
Yeah.
Maybe like call and response. I mean, it's excellent for community. It's also excellent for memory. It's anyway. And the sons of Naphtali, Jaziel, Guni, Jezer, and Shillem. These are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to his daughter Rachel, and she bore these to Jacob. There were 7 persons in all. All the people belonging to Jacob who came to Egypt, his direct descendants, not including the wives of Jacob's sons, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph, who were born to him in Egypt, were 2. All the people of the house of Jacob who came to Egypt were 70.
Because 66 plus
2 equals 70. So, right, exactly. So, let me back this up. Okay, let's look at the wording here, because like I'm looking at this and like, listen, this is how rumors get started. Okay. So all of the people, all of Jacob's sons, not including the wives of the sons, were 66. Those are the ones going into Egypt. Okay. Now in Egypt, Joseph had 2 sons, and then there's Joseph. So that's 3. Well, not even his wife, but like, and it's 3. But it says all of the house of Jacob who came to Egypt at whatever point. So we add Jacob to the list. So 66 plus Jacob plus Joseph plus the 2 sons is 70.
Nice.
It took a little bit of time to figure that one out, just saying. So y'all got it a lot faster than I did. Because I'm going through, okay, wait a second. But then it's that, and all the people of the house of Jacob who came to Egypt. Now that's just in 2 different trips, but there's 70. There's stuff like this that happens like in Exodus when it starts telling about the number of people who show up. This is part of how it's how they phrase it, who came and when they came, and then the total. But then you also start seeing stuff with the God talking about how long Abraham and his people would sojourn in the land, and it was like 430 years. and then you see how long they'll be in like captivity, like slaves for 200 years, and then you see, and you have to go back and actually see how long was the actual captivity supposed to be, how long was the sojourn supposed to be, and if you go through and break it down to what's actually said, because it's specific how it's laid out, then the math works. But if you just kind of read through it, it looks like they just had completely different stories. But just like in this point, if you go back and look at how it is, it actually lines up. So that when the Exodus, the day of the Exodus happened, it was exactly to the day. I think it was 430 years. I read that back then. I don't know right now.
There are lots of people set out to prove the Bible wrong or to find error.
Right.
I don't think any have succeeded yet.
There are some confusing things, but error, no. A lot of times when it looks like there's a direct contradiction, if you go back and look at the wording, or you go back to the original language and content and context, you realize that there's not a contradiction. You just misunderstood where they're coming from. That has been a fun journey for me personally, was to go through and find some of these things. And I actually, honestly, the things that I found that were contradictory, that I really couldn't support, is because when I actually looked them up, those things weren't actually in the Bible. It was doctrine and denominational teachings that were just not biblical. When you actually look for the stuff that's actually in the Bible, then it's consistent. Okay, now Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph. And again, I find it interesting it's Judah and not Reuben who is the eldest. But Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to guide him to Goshen. And they came into the land of Goshen. Now this is the area that Joseph already set aside. It's apparently a really nice area of Egypt at this point at any rate. And Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father Israel. So when they came into Egypt, they didn't go straight to the palace. They went to Goshen first to drop off all their stuff. And Joseph goes to meet them. As soon as he appeared to him, Joseph threw himself on his neck and wept on his neck a long time. Then Israel said to Joseph, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face, that you are still alive." Now, that doesn't mean like just let me die right now. It just means like now I can die. Now I'm complete again. Now it's an expression. It's not like a literal like God strike me dead right here.
He's released
From this burden. Now I know. Yes, we released from the not knowing. Then Israel said to Joseph, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face, that you are still alive." But Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, and interesting that is but Joseph said this, almost like that really should have been a new paragraph. But Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and will say to him, my brothers and my father's household, who were in the land of Canaan, have come to me, and the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock. And they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. When Pharaoh calls for you and says, 'What is your occupation?' you shall say, 'Your servants have been keepers of livestock since our youth, even until now, both we and our fathers, so that you may live in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians."
Interesting.
So this is kind of part of why they went to Goshen first. And why Joseph met them there. He's got to prepare them. It's like, okay, presumably there's also like, you need to get cleaned up, and he's giving them instruction on how to meet with Pharaoh and to explain why they came there instead. And Joseph's going to go ahead of them and explain this. And he's also making sure that they're straightforward and everybody's got their story straight. An interesting thing though, again, the Egyptian culture, they're very much, sheep aren't noted for their cleanliness.
So they look down on shepherds.
They very much, abomination may be a strong word, but they were loathsome. It's like, this is the lowest of the low. Keep them, they're definitely second, keep them over there. Everybody would have been happy with the idea of keep them in Goshen and we'll be over here. Like, as long as Joseph's happy, yeah, let's do this.
So the herds and all that, the animals were the evidence, the obvious evidence that they were shepherds.
Right.
To come into the presence of.
Absolutely. And then
Smart move.
if Pharaoh had a problem with them not coming here, if he heard first, like, okay, they had to stop and to deal with all their cattle and sheep. it'd be like if you had relatives coming in that you're excited to see, and then they didn't come to see you first, like they went somewhere else. Like, well, what's going on? Well, we had a truckload of fertilizer. We wanted to put that somewhere first. Like, oh, yeah, good. That's good thinking. That's a good plan.
I think, does the, if the shepherding was of low esteem to the Egyptians, it makes it a lot more easy to understand why they were become enslaved.
Definitely part of it, because they were already set like a second class for sure. Having them separate there was a lot of advantages here. Now, in Exodus, we see that the slavery was allowed because under oppression, the Israelites multiplied. It's like the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied. It's like they really weren't taking the hint. But also, because they're in Goshen by themselves, because they're a career, they're of an occupation that's abominable. There's no mixing of the Hebrew and the Egyptian. The Hebrew people become and stay the Hebrew people because nobody wants to get close to them. They're still there. They're still neighbors, but it's them and this is up. God has even before the law has set them up as a separate people. Just their occupation, just what they know. Now they're good at it. They're necessary, so they're still valuable. But yeah. And then when we get into the slavery, they're still doing that because they still have their herds and their cattle, but then they're also made to do the brick making and other such. So I'm actually going to stop there because we don't have nearly enough time to get into the next chapter. Anyway, so what we see a lot of care in. And here's another thing is like you start looking at, okay, was the word preserved? Like it was oral tradition for so long, and then it was written down, and who wrote it down? But then you look at the details. You look at even in English, the patterns of repetition, the mnemonic devices, the things to make it easier to memorize. It's all still maintained. It's survived translating into multiple languages. I mean, we had the Hebrew is translated into the Greek, then it's Latin, and then Latin to all the other ones, and then German and French, and then we finally get it into English, and yet these patterns still remain. Now, granted, a lot of like the current translations have gone back to the original Hebrew, but it's amazing that we've got it and that there's enough of it that we're talking about thousands of years of text, and still these patterns hold. And that's phenomenal to me. But also, we often look at the law and assume that the Jewish culture started at the law. Now, the most significant, the messianic aspects of the law happened at the law. But even here, God is keeping them separate. He is very carefully cultivating the line of his Messiah. And he's done it since Adam. Again, the first promise, and this is like back in the first couple of weeks of this study, when he pronounced the curse over the serpent for deceiving Eve. Like the first part was like, you and your descendants are going to suck dirt. Like you hurt my kids. But then there's the promise of the one that would crush the head of the evil one, the one that would be the seed of a woman. That was the promise of the Messiah. And then from that point on, from Adam to Abraham to Judah to David to little old Mary, God is very carefully. He's cultivating. I mean, he is the vine keeper. He's the gardener who's cultivating this line. And we see, and it's like, and I really am wrapping up. But there's so many people who want to talk about God as being a puppet master, and like if we have free will, and then how can God say He has control? Well, look through the text again and look at how often people royally messed up. He let people make wrong choices. He let people choose right or wrong all the way through. That's part of the reason that it took so long. I mean, talking about thousands of years, but He cultivated, He made sure that things were set up and arranged so that while they could have their free will, he could still have his ultimate will, because he was going to bring that Messiah. He was going to make sure that the things that separated his people from his heart would be done away with. He's going to bring his Savior. It's just really astounding to see all the evidence of his handiwork and his hand on his people. And he doesn't change. He's still got his hand on us. We just tend to be stuck in the paragraph and miss the whole page. So, any comments, any thoughts? Yes?
Dinah,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't she the one that was,
She's the one that was involved in that whole business with Shechem. Yes.
by her brother?
No, not by a brother. That's much later on with David, and her name was also Tamar.
Okay.
Now Dinah is the one who just went into town in Shechem, and yes, and then Simeon and Levi went in and murdered everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, like I said, God has allowed free will.
But he kept her in his lineage, and she had children.
She did. They aren't mentioned, but she was not abandoned.
Yeah.
So, anyway, God is good, and He is bigger than our choices, good or bad, and He's going to do His good work. And I find that very, very reassuring. So, look for His good